Recapping here. Today, I'm going to explain a neo-noir crime film called The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. Wealthy businessman Henrik van Geur grimly opens his birthday present, a specimen of dried flowers pressed into a frame. He looks at it with morbid curiosity. His grandniece Harriet van Geur has been dead for over 40 years, yet he still receives this routine birthday present without fail. Elsewhere, journalist Michael Blomqvist is faced with a career-ending dilemma. He has been charged with a libel suit by businessman Hans-Erik Wennerström after accusing him of criminal activity. Wennerström quickly disproved all of Michael's accusations and proceeded to destroy his career, costing him a handsome 600,000 Swedish kronor in damages. After having quite possibly the worst day of his life, Michael goes out for coffee and smoke when he returns to the magazine publishing company, Millennium. There, he is greeted by Erika Berger, his married lover and business partner. With Michael's situation, Erika is distraught and terribly distressed. Lisbeth Salander, a brilliant investigator and computer hacker, is contacted by one of Henrik van Geur's men, Mr. Dirch Frode. He contracts her to do a background check on Michael Blomqvist. After the initial report, Dirch seeks Lisbeth to ask questions about Michael and inquire more about his personal life. However, Lisbeth intentionally leaves it out of the report, stating that she believes in leaving some things private. She even goes as far as to make antagonizing jokes on Dirch's behalf when he pressed on the matter. After their bitter exchange, she comes home to do a background check on him and there, she discovers that Wennerström once worked for van Geur Industries, Dirch's employer. During Christmas evening, Michael is contacted by Dirch Frode. He introduces himself as Henrik van Geur's attorney and tells him to come to Hedestad. For some common ground, he adds that Henrik doesn't like Wennerström either. Though Michael hesitates at first because of his legal predicament, he ends up agreeing. Michael leaves for Hedestad a couple of days later. He arrives there by train, with Dirch picking him up. Michael is immediately displeased with the fierce cold in Hedestad and tells Dirch he'll be on the 4:30 train to get home that evening. Michael is then taken to Henrik van Geur's mansion, where he and Henrik officially meet. He wants to enlist Michael's help in solving a family mystery that has been haunting the van Geurs for over 40 years, the disappearance and presumed murder of Harriet van Geur. Henrik explains that on paper, Michael will be writing his memoirs as his cover. As a primer, Henrik proceeds to explain his family. He introduces Harriet as his grandniece and the only relative that he didn't detest. Harriet's grandfather and Henrik's brother was Richard van Geur, a German nationalist who served and died for the Second World War. Richard's son and Harriet's father is Gottfried van Geur, a salesman who helped build van Geur Industries. He adds that a drunk Gottfried drowned in the ocean in 1965. Isabella, Harriet's mother, became a useless parent after her husband's death, leaving Henrik to take care of Harriet and her brother Martin, who now runs modern-day van Geur Industries. Henrik tells Michael that he believes that someone in their family murdered Harriet and has been playing mind games with him for over 40 years. After laying out his family tree, Henrik recounts the day of Harriet's disappearance. It was September 24, 1966, and they were holding the family's annual board meeting and dinner. At the same time, there was a town parade that Harriet attended with her friends. She returned after 2 in the afternoon and tried to Henrik, but he told her to wait. At this time, a road accident occurred on the Hedestad bridge exit. An oil truck toppled atop a van, and almost half the island went on to help, including the van Geur family. After the rescue, they slowly returned home. It was during their dinner that Henrik realized that his grandniece was gone. Michael asks if Harriet might have run away, but Henrik believes she didn't. He then shows Michael the collection of pressed flowers, explaining that Harriet used to send them to him before she disappeared. He continues to receive them even after her disappearance, leading him to believe that Harriet's killer is the culprit. Though he initially decided to decline the job, Michael ends up accepting when Henrik promises him dirt on Wennerström. Lisbeth continues to investigate Wennerström. One day, as Lisbeth returns home, she is shocked to find her state-appointed guardian Holger Palmgren suffering from a stroke. She takes him to the hospital, and afterward, she's designated a new guardian named Nils Bjurman. Michael arrives once again at Hedestad and moves into the small cabin Henrik had prepared for him. There, he meets a cat that takes a liking to him and in turn, he decides to take the cat in during his stay there. On his first morning in the viciously cold cabin, Michael is awakened by the caretaker Gunnar at the front door. Henrik then gives Michael a rundown of the family members living nearby. Harold is his recluse brother and the family's Second World War German nationalist. There's also Harold's daughter, Cecilia, who lives away from Harold and isn't on speaking terms with him. Cecilia's brother Binger is mentioned, and Henrik claims him to be as unpleasant as his father. Then, there's Isabella, Harriet's mother, and finally, Martin, Harriet's brother. Later in his cabin, Michael starts preparing by putting up a board with notes, maps, and pictures. He begins his investigation with the officer who was assigned the case at the time, Officer Morel. He reads Morel's report and gathers all the details. The next day, he goes to the officer's home. Morel is now an old man, and he tells Michael that Harriet was his Rebecca case. According to him, every cop has an unsolved case that haunts them forever. The namesake of the phrase came from an officer named Torstensen. His obsession with the unsolved case surrounding a girl named Rebecca spanned the rest of his life until his death. Michael shows Morel a diary from Harriet, but Morel only shoves it back to him, saying he's studied it several times already. Michael talks about the list of initials with numbers behind the diary, but they were just another dead end. Back at Hedestad, Michael meets Martin Vanger for an interview. Martin recounts that Harriet's death affected the family as well as their company. It broke Henrik's spirit, and from there, things continued to decline. When asked if he was there the day Harriet disappeared, Martin says he arrived after the accident on the bridge with the 4:30 train. Martin, who is unaware of Michael's real assignment, encourages him to include Harriet in Henrik's memoirs. The next day, Michael pays Cecilia Vanger a visit. Cecilia behaves rudely toward Michael, and after he asked her what Harriet was like, she replies that her sister Anita knows Harriet better than she does. Cecilia adds that Anita now lives in London and would probably not want to see him. Meanwhile, Lisbeth is furious at her new state-appointed guardian, Nils Germa. He manipulatively controls her finances, using her previous criminal behavior to keep her from fighting back. One day, Lisbeth gets mugged by a random criminal. She fights back and retrieves her bag, but it ends with her computer breaking. This event leads to Lisbeth requesting money from Nils to purchase a replacement. Nils takes advantage of this situation to extort obscene favors from her by threatening to have her institutionalized if she doesn't comply. Afterward, Lisbeth leaves Nils's office with the money. Michael arrives in London to find Anita Vanger, Harriet's cousin, and the two of them go out to a cafe for an interview. Anita claims that she's distanced herself from her family for many years already and that she has a poor recollection of those long-past events. But she tells him that Harriet was a messed-up and unhappy girl, who withdrew to religion as her own father might have abused her. And if Harriet survived, Anita suspects that she must have run away. One evening, Lisbeth has run out of money for food and visits Nils in his apartment. Thinking it would just be another favor, Lisbeth half-heartedly follows him to his room. This is when Nils cuffs Lisbeth to his bed so he can very roughly abuse her. Meanwhile, Michael starts looking over the Bible since Anita mentioned Harriet to be religious. Later, Erica stops by Hedestad Island for a visit. Here, Henrik and Martin offer financial help to the Millennium. When Erica asks why Henrik would do that, Henrik replies, "The enemies of my friends are my enemies." Erica accepts the offer, much to Michael's concern. Lisbeth Salander is out for revenge. She seeks out Nils and catches him by surprise with a taser. When Nils wakes up, he is gagged and bound to the floor. Lisbeth proceeds to torture and blackmail him with the camera she planted in her bag the night he abused her. With the video, she coerces Nils into giving her control of her money. She then uses a painful tattoo needle to succinctly write on Nils's chest that he's a pig who forces himself on women, completely blocking his intimate life. One day, Michael makes a break in the case when he observes one of the parade photos showing Harriet surprised and frightened by something. Bit by bit, he starts to put the pieces together. Michael finds a Bible verse about a dove offering, and the method of killing the dove is similar to how the girl from the Rebecca case, Rebecca Jacob's son, died. Michael also notes that the initials RJ, on Harriet's diary, belongs to her. With these in mind, Michael realizes that the numbers listed next to the names are Bible verses. Later, Henrik is rushed to the hospital because of a medical emergency. His supervision of Michael is put in question, so he speaks with Dirch regarding his payment and asks who he'll be reporting to if Henrik dies. Michael proceeds to ask for a research assistant, to which Dirch recommends Lisbeth Salander. After much effort, Michael tracks down Lisbeth in her apartment and brings breakfast with him to meet her. Considering her recent experiences with men, Lisbeth is hesitant and wary of Michael at first. However, Michael gains her trust when he mentions he needs her help to catch a killer of women. With her on board, Michael presents everything he has so far on the Harriet case. Lisbeth boots a program on her computer and proceeds to work on the list of initials at the back of Harriet's diary. Lisbeth arrives at Michael's cabin after a day of investigating in Hedestad. Lisbeth reports that all 5 initials belong to the 5 women who were all abused and killed by a serial murderer. Lisbeth even goes on to find more victims, with one of them being Lena Anderson, a student. Michael stops Lisbeth to ask her what the serial killer has to do with Harriet, and Lisbeth tells him that Harriet was looking for him, too. Another observation that Lisbeth makes is that all the victims had biblical Jewish names. Michael informs her that there's more than one German nationalist in the Vanger family, implying that the killer could be one of the Vangers. The next morning, Michael is surprised to see Lisbeth using his encrypted laptop. Lisbeth tells Michael she's looking over his notes, and Lisbeth notices something. In one of the parade photos, a woman is taking a photograph during the time Harriet got startled by what she saw on the other side of the street. Michael then goes out of the cabin for a smoke, but he ends up terribly shocked to see his cat beheaded and mutilated, serving as a message to Michael that he should stop and leave. Despite the threat, Michael spends his day interviewing the locals in search of the woman with the camera. After a few hours of asking around, he finally arrives at the woman's house. She politely welcomes him and presents him with her old photographs. Michael finds one particular photo of an obscured young man on the other side of the street, and he asks the woman if he can make a copy of it. Afterward, Michael decides to visit the place where Gottfried Vanger died. He arrives at the old house beside the dock. Before he knows it, he is suddenly shot by an unseen assailant from afar. The bullet almost hits him, grazing him on the forehead. Meanwhile, Lisbeth is setting up security cameras in the cabin. Just as she finished, Michael comes in bloody and frightened. Lisbeth takes care of Michael's head wound, and from there, she makes a move on him. The two end up sleeping together despite Michael's initial hesitation. The next day, Michael and Lisbeth visit Dirch and Martin to request access to Vanger Industries records. After some arguments between Dirch and Martin, Dirch lets his hesitation go and grants them access. Michael then tasks Lisbeth with looking for any connections between the Vanger family and the towns where the women were killed. Michael adds that he also wants everything on Dirch Frode, who he suspects because of his guarded reaction to having the records accessed. Lisbeth goes down to the company and begins to search their records. There, she draws a possible connection between the victims and Gottfried, except for Lena Anderson, who was killed when Gottfried was already dead. Meanwhile, Michael interviews Harold, who he discovered took several photographs the day that Harriet died. During their interview, Michael found one such photo that contained a man who was similar to the one that had Harriet scared in the parade photo. Harold identifies him as Martin. Back at the cabin, Michael rechecks his records and finds that Lena Anderson and Martin were in the same school the year she died. Filled with suspicion and a desire for answers, Michael goes to search Martin in his house. He takes one of the knives in the kitchen and proceeds to go through the house, but he finds no one there. Just then, Martin drives up in his car, causing Michael to panic and leave in a hurry. Michael almost escapes, but Martin spots him falling over in the grass just outside his house. Martin then persuades Michael to come over inside for a drink. Not wanting to offend Martin, Michael complies. There, Martin questions Michael on what he knows so far. With tensions high, Martin realizes that one of his knives in the kitchen is missing, so he brings out a gun and points it at Michael. He ushers Michael to a hidden underground room where Martin activates a sleeping gas to knock him out. When Michael wakes up, he finds his neck wrung up and hung onto the ceiling. Believing that Michael's done for, Martin finally admits that he's the serial killer. Still, he gets shaken up when Michael mentions Harriet. He accuses Martin of killing her, but Martin only appears confused when he was told that. Before Martin could begin torturing Michael, Lisbeth comes in and bashes Martin's jaw with a golf club. Martin makes a run for it, and Michael tells Lisbeth Martin left a gun behind. With Martin driving away in his car, Lisbeth gives chase to him using her motorcycle. She gains on Martin and spooks him enough to tip his car off balance. Martin's car crashes, trapping him inside. Before Lisbeth could finish him off, the car explodes. Back at the cabin, Lisbeth and Michael regroup to talk about the Vanger siblings. After realizing that Martin didn't kill Harriet, Michael suggests that Harriet might have survived, and the only person who'd know where she is would be Anita. The two of them then go to London. At first, Michael and Lisbeth try spying on Anita's laptop and cell phone activity to see if she's speaking with Harriet, but later, Michael realizes one last possibility. Michael goes to face Anita. He comes up to her and calls her by her real name, Harriet. Finally, Harriet gives up the act and tells Michael everything. Harriet's father began forcing himself on her when she was just 14. After she had killed him, her brother continued abusing her like their father did, instead. Because of that, Anita helped her escape. She hid on the island until the search for her just began and left on the bridge, and everyone else was busy looking elsewhere. Back at Hedestad, a recovering Henrik gives Michael his payment and the dirt he has on Wennerstrom. That day, Harriet and Henrik share an emotional reunion. Michael is later disappointed, and the only thing Henrik offered was Wennerstrom being fired for money embezzlement in his youth while working for Vanger Industries, since that isn't enough to damage him. This motivates Lisbeth to reveal that she had hacked Wennerstrom's accounts, and she gives Michael evidence of Wennerstrom's crimes. He then uses this to publish a brutal editorial, ruining Wennerstrom and bringing Michael to national prominence. A disguised Lisbeth travels to Switzerland and removes €2 billion from Wennerstrom's secret accounts. As for Wennerstrom, he is later murdered in an apparent gangland shooting. On her way to give her new friend Michael a Christmas present, Lisbeth sees Michael with his lover Erica. Disappointed, she throws away the gift and rides away on her motorcycle. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like, it really helps our channel. Thank you for watching.